So, have you been writing a lot of new music recently? I know these are really challenging times, and I personally have been finding it kind of odd because it's like hard to get in the flow, but you feel like I want to say something, make a statement, and bring some positivity in. So, are you writing a lot?
Absolutely. Yes, I'm actually working on releasing my first album by the end of this year. Um, and it is an interesting time. And my story is, I guess you could say, focused on my life and my experiences. And so in a way, I'm writing with the source of my story and sort of sharing hope and inspiration to people who might be in situations where, sometimes they can't really talk to somebody about what's going on, and sometimes they have to um, like sort of work through things and work things out. And I want this music to reach that audience and everyone as well. Excuse me. The I feel like, especially now, feeling a lot of like energy of like there's definitely panic out there, there's fear and there's worry, but I do feel as though inspiration and hope and I guess resilience, it definitely helps us as a human race to sort of continue chugging on. And that's what I hope to sort of put into this that's coming up. So yeah, I do. I've got some stuff going on. And especially now, it's given me a lot of time to sort of look at the things that I'm doing on a mechanical basis or an automatic level, to where I'm going through the daily motions and I'm doing this and this is so easy, or the things that I'm eating are, whatever, it's just there, it's convenient. Um, it's sort of, now that I have to sort of look into myself now, it's like I can't like look out, whatever. It's interesting to see that there's a lot of growth for me. There's a lot of growth that like I'm realizing that I can get better, because as I'm practicing every day, like going through these like exercise and these workouts, and like eating the right stuff, I'm like feeling a lot more power and energy and like hope, to get through this. So yeah, it's a lot of good stuff happening. What about you?
Oh, that's great. And you make a great point. Like there has been, I feel like an energetic shift. And I think as musicians, we feel it. And as artists and sensitive people that are really tuned in through the senses and through the arts, I think we are tuned in to that energetic shift and tuned into the fact that there's a lot of kind of darkness and sadness right now. And I mean, people are dying and families are affected and everyone is affected, and having like you say, resiliency, I think is important for everybody to practice, and we're all being really tested, and how good are we at being resilient. But I think for me at least, I'm finding that I'm being drawn to compose more during this time. And I don't know if other musicians maybe listening, feel free to comment to anyone who has a question or wants to join. But I just feel like musicians kind of feel this and sense that there's been a shift and it's flowing. It's just,
Yeah.
I'm just finding lyrics are coming, new melodies are coming in, and it's like, what do you do, right? Other than write. I mean, we can cry, I mean, and feel down, but I just feel like it's the responsibility of musicians to lift people up. And it's just sometimes we will feel like, how can we lift people up possibly because we're feeling so down? But
Right.
I think it has to start with the artist. I mean, historically it always has. We are being the light workers and the light bearers when everything else is dark. So it's just interesting that I thought, oh my goodness, I doubt anyone's going to have the energy or have the mindset to write new music right now. Yet sometimes you get that little call late at night, usually that little
Yeah.
tickle that's like, oh, it's time to write. It's just like you get into this, you start singing in the shower, you just hear a melody, and next thing you know, you're like writing something.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I definitely resonate with that sentiment. And it is, in some ways it can seem very daunting, like understanding that, there's the things that you create, it approaches people in a deeper way that can guide people, in a specific direction. And realizing that is quite daunting. For me, sometimes it's like what you were saying, you feel a little small, like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed, like, how do people enjoy what I'm doing, and it's really cool to sort of be able to be a conduit, or sort of a muse for that art and that sound. I think it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of just like lifestyle, you mentioned just like taking good care of yourself, and that's kind of your creative fuel. Like, what are some ideas or suggestions that you do like lately in the last couple weeks on a daily basis to kind of stay grounded and to kind of
Absolutely.
take care of your creative spirit?
Right. So my first instrument is voice, and during a time like this, and especially with the epidemic that's going on, there is some would say, some could be like very afraid, especially having that be your career, singing, and having this epidemic sort of attack the very pillar of your instrument. That fear or that thought is very much there. So in a way, it's encouraging for me to like ever wake up, like do like run a little bit, do some push-ups. And then one thing that I do for vocalists, you can do this as well, is just get a straw if you have a straw. If not, it's okay. Sort of pucker your lips, sort of like you're about to like whistle, and sort of just do any scale, but don't go too high and don't go too low. Just get comfortable with the flow of that. And the more and more you build that, you build a focus. And in the morning, like just doing something like that helps me focus, like physically. And then once that happens, then I feel more comfortable like going on the piano and messing around with something, because I know that, okay, this is here. And I'm also taking care of things as much as I can, So that's one good thing I do. I scream sometimes, healthily, of course. It's like also helps like getting the focus in the proper resonant area is also like a nice diffuser in times. I mean, if you have to scream, you gotta scream. But
Yeah, I imagine a lot of us want to right now to scream. There's a scream, cry, a whole range of emotions. I know I've been feeling a lot lately, so a lot of heaviness. So it's sometimes challenging to just keep habits going. And one thing I'm trying to do daily that I'm sure a lot of my, our musician friends or just peers and colleagues do is, get outside, because nature is such a source of a font of inspiration, and to just get outside and go for a walk. Like I'll just see neighbors, like it's like a park in our sub, it's just like everybody is out and about and smiling, and it's friendly, and it's or not, or they're not friendly, but at least like seeing human contact and just having that, recognizing we're all doing something for our mental health individually and collectively, I think is really powerful.
That is wonderful. I do agree with that. I was running the other day, and I saw two people like passing by me, and obviously there's the 6 foot rule or whatever, and so I'm not sure how everybody's going to react, but recently I've been seeing so many smiles, and it's very interesting. I feel as though people are sort of reevaluating, the importance of people. That sometimes we can get caught into like sort of like taking energy or like holding on to energy and sort of like keeping it safe. But I think that like we can gain even more energy when we sort of work with each other. And I think we can become more powerful you know, with working with each other as a human race. Like, it's just, I mean, obviously I'm saying such a general statement, but I mean, I'm seeing it in practice, you know, like just like having waves and smiles that were never there before. It's very interesting. It's odd, honestly, but it is interesting, and it is also comforting to like see that, you know, people are there, you know, and we all want love and we all want care, you know, and we want appreciation. And yeah, it's really nice to go outside and see people.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. So also I realized I don't think I gave you an official introduction yet or introduced kind of, but David MAGUMBA and I go way back just from college. We met at the University of Michigan, and I don't think we really collaborated too much until after
Nope.
we graduated, but knew you as a fantastic vocalist in the vocal department at Michigan, and I was in jazz. And it was funny that we mentioned a lot of our peers fled for like the coasts, you know, East Coast, West Coast, and we're like looking at each other like, are we the only two left? And I mean, there's a handful of other Michigan grads from the music school that are still around locally, but it's definitely not the norm. So it's almost like more of a motivation to, okay, all of college went by and we didn't collaborate. We have no excuse now.
Right.
So I'm glad that we connected, and that we have some new collaborations we've been working on, and I know we've been talking about getting in the studio.
So fun. Yes, I'm so frustrated. We're so close. So we almost got into the studio, and a good friend of mine was going to help us set it up, and I believe it was that Friday when I believe the governor like shut down the studio somehow, or the studio was shut down. Well, I mean, she shut down everything, but the studio was one of the last to sort of stay there, and that was the day when we're like, no, we missed it. But
now we're forced to do everything
virtually. Now we're doing this. Yeah. But that will happen. And I'm so excited for that product. There's some awesome stuff. Hannah's an amazing pianist, jazz pianist, and it's so easy working with this person. And like just very wonderful sounds coming out. So yeah, very excited for this product.
It means a lot. Your voice is like velvet, and I can't believe we haven't worked sooner. And also, you are a great lyricist. So a lot of times, you know, I came in, remember our first time we met, and I said, you know, here's a melody. Do you want to write lyrics? And it was just like a great songwriting team, because lyrics are something I struggle with personally. So, you know, and you are like write like poetry, and you're just like a person with a lot of great thoughts and energy and a lot of good ideas. So I'm really excited to get in the studio eventually and record.
It's gonna be awesome. It's so cool.
Awesome. And I remember pulling you up on stage at the Blue Llama for our live stream, very last minute, and you like you're like, all right, and it just you sounded great. I mean, I would love to bring you up again when I'm back.
Count me in. I love, although it scares me to death. It's one of like the most like exhilarating feelings doing something improv. It's like you just have like you get to listen to the chord progression one time or like a few times, and then they're like, okay, all right, let's go. That's just I don't know. I'm crazy, but yeah, that's awesome. It was a pleasure.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, no, that was my first experience being live streamed, and it's been an adaptation. Everyone's had to be resilient and flexible. Everybody in every industry across the board, and I think it's great that we have this tool. And I would just pose the question to anyone who watches this, or any musician friends. We may even post about this, but if there's a way to work remotely and live stream simultaneously with other musicians. Because I know David had an idea today about that, because Zoom has such a latency and a lag that it's hard to do music remotely.
Right. Absolutely. And on top of that, having different sources. So my source is here on my device, and then your source is there on your device, and then we're connecting that into an online source to stream out. That, I mean, can only imagine like the difficulty in like streaming that and syncing that up very well. Obviously, like we're getting better at it. But when it comes to sort of overloading the video cast with audio sound, as opposed to like a normal conversation that we're having right now, wondering what sort of I guess device or web source is able to take in all that audio and stream it out as clean as it can be.
Whoever comes up with that's going to be very
whoever
wealthy.
has that
Who's going to hit the jackpot.
So much money off of musicians. Musicians would pay. Yeah, that's cool. I actually have a question for you,
okay,
Hannah, when it comes to sort of how you, so when you go back and you recenter yourself, and coming back to the piano, how do you find inspiration or to sort of continue the practice, to continue the grind? Because sometimes, you know, especially in a time like this, there are a lot of musicians out there, I mean, me including, where you sort of see that. And sometimes it's the other way around, you know, sometimes it's very inspiring and you get that source and you get that energy and you go. And then other times, like, you might feel just so defeated, you know, about the day or the situation. Do you have like coping mechanisms, or how do you approach going back, like going into and like taking one step?
That's a great question. And I think it's so individual. I mean, we all have our quirky ways of getting inspiration and things, and probably it's different for everyone. But for me, at least, I have had days recently where I'm just feeling, you know, with everything going on in the world and with COVID, that inspiration line has been kind of less accessible and closed. So something I realized I wasn't doing was I got out of the habit of listening to music. And some of my favorite artists have released new albums, including Lila Manali, a Canadian pianist vocalist, and Candace Springs, an amazing Tennessee-based jazz pianist and vocalist. And I just listened to their albums the other day. I went for like a solitary walk and just let it kind of wash over my ears and listen to each track, took my time. And then by that evening, it just like hit. It's like I got in this mental frenzy where it's like I had all these melodies, fragments, and it was just like I got out of the shower and I was just like ready to wind down for the night. And then that's usually right when it hits, and it like I wind back up again and have to run to the piano, and just whatever comes out usually is going to be potentially a song. So I hit record and usually have a process that takes anywhere from like half hour to an hour. And by the end of it, I have a song. It's not perfect, but it's at least what was trying to get out of me. It feels like you have to purge. It feels like you have something you have to get out. Do you experience that? It's just like that.
Oh yeah. So I was going to ask, do you feel as though what you're describing is, you know, if you ever get that itch, you know, that's going on inside of you to like go on the piano or make some sound, just follow, I guess, that most raw feeling. Is that close to what you might be experiencing?
Yeah, it is a feeling, and it usually is brought on by an emotion. Like for the last couple songs I wrote about, inspired, but kind of by, I don't know, I don't want to say inspired by coronavirus, but just kind of informed by the pandemic. I think that generated an angst inside of me. Like, I want to say something. I have this really upset, confused emotion, and I want to be able to channel that into something useful or something that could potentially provide comfort for people right now.
Yeah.
So that, yeah, like you said, that clear line of emotion, that's what draws the melody and the lyrics. And it just floods out. It just like, if you try to do it, like sit down and say, I'm going to write a song. Never, the most false things will come out. You know, it's like only when you are in your purest state does the kind of the access to the higher self open, like you're channeling, right?
That's
So
awesome. That's
that's
wonderful.
kind of my process. I know it must be. Is it different for you, or do you have a similar?
Oh, it's definitely that. I definitely get that. I also like, I guess it's that, and I'm also inspired, I think, in other venues. Like sometimes, I listen to a lot of obviously I've listened to a lot of my favorite musicians and bands. And then sometimes it also comes in through poetry as well, like just reading something by like Shakespeare, or some other poets, that just seeing a phrase and seeing a line and seeing how that phrase can sound in a certain pentameter or a certain rhythm or a certain way. And then sometimes those colors or sometimes those words start to form how that the colors and that phrase. I think for me, that's another way. I think when I see that and I see a phrase, I'm like, oh my gosh, that I have to make something from that, So that's like another way that I can get inspired, but it doesn't happen as much as I want it to. But things are shooting along, especially with this album. I'm very excited about. So much energy.
More about this album. I want to hear more about it.
Yeah, so I don't want to give away too much, but it's, and for lack of better words, it's more of like a biography, and sort of just like setting the listener, I guess, into like a first person situation, sort of. I've got some things that I say that sort of put you in a state, or hopefully I can set the story well, I guess, in a way to sort of have you think of, how it would be. And then the music, it's just going to be what it is. And the goal of it is to sort of guide people through pain, guide people through like happiness through the story. And basically I want this album to express the concept of, just giving up, and believing in like your progression, and believing in the goodness that you have to offer to the world, after maybe so much is probably like crushed you, or just sort of a deeper build, like a deeper self encouragement album. I don't know. And then I'll stop there, and then the rest I won't say any more about it.
Are you going to release a single or one or two early releases before the full album?
We will see. At this point, time will tell. I'm currently still in the works of filling a few of these songs. I might. So the answer to your question is potentially, that I haven't decided on which one that I want to push out there yet. So
yeah, no, I imagine everything is up in the air. I as well have an album coming out, Straight from the Soul, it's entitled, and it was supposed to be debuted like May, but I think it's gonna have to push it more towards July now, or June, just because of course with COVID going on. But I think since everything's kind of been pushed, I think everybody, has more compassion, I think, right now, which is a great thing for artists, again, to inspire, right? And the world is so in dire need of compassion anyway, that if we learn nothing from this, it's at least to love each other more and to be united and not divided, because it feels so divided right now. But I feel like the broader message is that we need to come together. And what do you think? How do you think music is a tool for uniting people? I mean, it's so intangible, right? It's so intangible.
Music is so much. It is so much. Music is Yeah, you could say it's a tool. It is, like you said, it's so complex. It's vast. It's far-reaching. Um, it can make you feel so many different things. So many different things that the language that you're probably fluent in does not express.
Mm-hmm.
That music is, I believe, in many ways, another language.
Yes.
To communicate with everyone, literally everyone. So, I mean, sure, there are certain regions in the world and certain places in the world where, you know, there's a specific style of expressing the musicality and the music. Um, and they're undeniable truths of like having a human hear something and being captivated by it in a certain way. There are things that, you know, science has proven that, like, you know, certain wave frequencies resonate with people in a certain way, you know, affect them in a certain way. So, I mean, music is physical, music is mental, it's emotional, it's a lot. It is a tool for, yeah, who knows? I mean, I think especially now, music is one of the more powerful tools at this moment. So
Wholeheartedly agree with you. I love what you just said. And I think, don't you find it interesting that, like, just looking historically back in
mhm.
time, like some of the best music has come from some of the most trying periods. You know, the Great Depression, World War II. And you just think you have great like battle songs or great theme songs or songs that are featured in movies that are they're like the Great American Songbook, like just timeless. And
Yeah,
I almost wonder, like, just because where we're at musically, everyone is making music. Genres are so proliferative and wide ranging and segmented and
mhm.
fragmented that it's like, I wonder if we have our own like theme song of this era that we're in now. Is I wonder if we're gonna have like a leader, right? Or have a band emerge or an artist emerge
Wow.
that's like known for maybe getting people through the COVID pandemic
Mhm.
or the zoonotic pandemics to come, right? Because I'm
Right.
sure this isn't the last we're going to see. Science tells us, you know, with this with bats and everything. So there's definitely more of this to come. So it's interesting to see to look ahead and imagine, hey, if we're in the future, right, looking back, how are musically are we going to be recognizing this era? I don't know.
Right.
Just a thought.
Woo! That is that.
That's a can of worms. But
That no, that's important. That is a deep thought. That is a powerful thought.
yeah. Like
Uh,
what's the sound of today? I don't know if we have a sound. It's just there's
oh my
so
goodness.
many sounds.
Yeah,
It's
I
like
don't
overload.
know. When you say sound, um, what do you mean? Do you mean genre? Do you like? I heard you. I overheard you speaking briefly upon like a voice or like a group. Um, but where would you say the parameters of that sound are? Would you say the sound, it's like it encompasses like either the voice, um it encompasses like the like instrumentation, the production of it, um the culture behind it, you know, what do you mean about the sound that could move this humanity through this?
Yeah. Gee, I really don't know. I'm just thinking like in historically and speaking, like think like the big band era of swing and jazz, or you think of like blues, you know, these different like archetypes of music. It just
Mhm.
now it seems like everything is so, and I'm a huge proponent of genre blending. That's kind of how I'm branding myself as an artist. But when you blend everything, it's just I wonder if anything will stand out. Like in the future, looking back,
Yeah,
is it just a time of like, well, everyone was someone and it was a lot of produced music and it was a lot going on and there wasn't one sound, but we all got ourselves through it in like microcosms. Maybe
yeah,
that's going to be it. Like we each have our little communities of music instead of
yeah,
one big community.
maybe.
Uh,
But yeah, I it's also exciting, and it's exciting to think about and wonder, the possibilities are even more now that things are happening. I mean, on my Instagram, there are like, I follow famous people. Uh, and it's funny because they are now so close to us, you know, they're now the community, depending on what type of celebrity or person they are. A lot of them are realizing that it's to like go back to the community and reach out to them as personally as they can. And it's just like, it's just everybody live streaming like every other night or every other day. And they're getting so many views. And that in itself is such a wonderful way for like the community to come together and show support. Mm-hmm. And I do feel as though, like when you're speaking of the genre blending, that is even more possible with that sort of connection or that intense like communication. So I mean, if anything, it's moving in a direction of, I think, what you're speaking of. So
yeah, very exciting.
Yeah.
At least that's a source of hope that I can at least look at, is just say the music is there's got to be goodness in it, just in music there, you know, that's going to be the like the bastion, that's something, the glue that holds us together, you know, that we can look back on and say, you know, this is the music of this time. And I don't know, but I'd be curious to see, like, are your friends really being prolific right now, writing a lot of music? Or
yeah, we're working hard.
Okay, so yeah, so the wheels are turning for a lot of musicians. Okay.
Yeah, working. I mean, I'm so blessed to be around wonderful people, to be able to collaborate with people like you, and to be around such like just awesome support, you know. And it's like, even that in itself, it's like giving me more like responsibility in a way, but sort of I guess respect to this art to get something out, you know. I haven't released, to be very frank, I haven't released a lot out. Like my webpage it's not as much as I'd like to have. And I've been really sort of like thinking, practicing, sort of plotting, while like, you know, a lot of my other peers are releasing things consistently. And it's like the more and more support that I've been receiving, it's just like, it's a wonderful flow of encouragement at this point in time. And yeah, like I feel as though I'm someone who, I guess in a way, is in the early stages and feels sort of bashful about putting something out, or just like, oh my gosh, this is gonna happen, it's gonna be there forever.
You gotta commit now, no going back.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, that's it. So I mean, in this creative process, I'm growing, and I'm just so blessed to be around wonderful people, nurturing and like caring for that artistry. And you know, I do hope and work for, in return, giving that back out to everyone. So yeah, there's a lot of
any shame in waiting, you know, waiting for the right moment. Like you say, you know, everyone else's might be running around doing their thing, but you go to the beat of your own drummer, and I just really respect that in you.
Yeah. Thank you, appreciate that.
Thank
yeah you. That's awesome. It's so exciting. And yeah, I just like, if us musicians can like give that to people, I'd be so happy. Like that makes me happy, being able to give just like inspiration. And you know, one day it's like everything is terrible, but you remember like a collective of people who cared for you and created something for your heart and your soul.
Yes.
Or just like your mind as well, to wake up the next day and say, you know what, forget it, I'm going to take one more step today. Just in spite of that song, in spite of whatever, I'm going to take one step today, even in spite, but hopefully with you know, and they do that, and then they're productive, and then they look back at what they did and they're like, oh my gosh, I did it, you know, I was able to like do the thing I thought I couldn't do today. You know, if that is, that's what I want to get. That's why I'm doing. So I'm doing this stuff.
No small feat. You think it's, what making music, you're like, it seems kind of in a way so selfish. Like we like to do it. We want to write music, but then a teacher of mine, Benny Green, who I studied jazz with for a number of years, he said, no, Hannah, it's not selfish. It's one of the most selfless things you can do. He said, because you're giving of yourself through the music. And people need music. It's like a necessity, and it's full circle. So it's a selfless act. He told me. I'm like, really? He's like, really? I'm like, okay.
Okay.
So why is it so much fun? It feels criminal sometimes, because it's like nowadays, especially now with COVID, just like it's like a somber time. So it's hard to draw up the courage to write inspiring music when you feel like you just want to keep your mouth shut and you honestly feel like shut down and scared. It's hard to draw up the courage to say, no, I want to lift people up. I want to lift myself up in the process and do our best. So
couldn't have said it better. That's awesome. I definitely resonate with that sentiment. Wow. So
I think we're nearing the end of our segment of Hannah's Corner.
We are? Oh, okay. I have one more question, but if that's
no,
2 minutes. Okay, 2 minutes for you for advice for beginner pianists who are interested in sort of building their vocabulary on the piano. And sort of easing themselves into working on the piano. Let's go far. Let's say that they had a terrible experience with like an early teacher, which like sort of like just terrorized them to go back on the piano. What would your advice be to them?
To almost, I think I would focus on what drew me to the piano in the very first place before the instructor. So what was it that initially was the spark that drew you to the piano? Was it a song? Was it an artist? Was it a song you wrote and that maybe wasn't encouraged? And then run with that. Sit down in that frame of mind, the same one you had, and play what comes out, play that song that you loved. And definitely get a different teacher. I'd get a teacher that listens to and what you want to study. I've had in my past some teachers who very early days that maybe weren't open to all my creative outlets and my compositions and wanted me to learn more lexicon or vocabulary. But I thankfully found someone who I studied with for most of my life who, throughout those critical childhood years supported my love of writing music, which I would encourage this person or a person to find an instructor that values their voice and not trying to get them to imitate someone or sound like someone or being forced to put into a box, but someone that sees that person as having a unique voice that they want to nurture. I have a student right now and I never thought I'd teach, but I see a lot of her in me. And it's so darn heartwarming to just say, learn by ear. I did it when I was your age, and it's going to be okay. You'll still learn how to sight read, but learn the sound of music song that you want to learn, and I'll help you because it's keeping you engaged and interested in the love of music real. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
Great questions. It was so fun to talk to you, and. Well, so let's tell what everyone what the issue we ran into was. We want to do a live stream with both of us right now, but given the technological challenges, we're each going to go off to our separate live streams, yours and mine, and we will just be releasing music together in the near future.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and let's see if I can get this live thing working. And without further ado, break legs and have a great evening.
Break legs. You too, David. Take care. Stay healthy.
You too.